Willy Schenker, qui est en fait le transporteur des Deutsche Bahn, a développé avec Volkswagen des voitures, des documents, je veux dire, toutes les transactions sont en fait blockchainées.
All right. Start in 1 minute, so please all sit down and leave the stands. Just a reminder that if you don't want to follow the presentation, holy that just a quick reminder that we have a great microphone also. No, so if you, what, you don't hear me? Higher? So there will be 4 presentations here of 15 minutes. If you want to continue doing some networking or talk, please don't do it here. You can go upstairs, there is a terrace there. But there is also a workshop where Jean-Luc and others will be asking any questions related to blockchain. Even if you have a really stupid and simple question, they will be there to answer it. So there are 3 options: or you sit here and you follow the 4 presentations of the 4 projects presenting, or you go upstairs to continue talking, or you go upstairs to follow the workshop. So please find a seat. Thank you very much. C'est horrible. Hello, yeah. So one more time, so or you sit here and you follow the 4 projects, or you go to the door just next to the bar to continue talking between each other, upstairs on the nice terrace, or there is also a workshop, Ask Me Anything About Blockchain, led by Jean-Luc Verhelst together with Michiel, and they can answer any questions that you have related to blockchain. So make your choice now. Nice. So it's the top floor, so you just follow the stairs until you cannot follow them anymore. So here, for the projects presenting the idea, they will have 10 minutes to present the project and also explain if they are using blockchain in a more public or private way and how they do so. The first person to present their project is Tim, one of the co-founders of FundRequest. And I will not explain to you what FundRequest is because that's his job. So I will ask Tim to come up here. And also don't forget that if you have any questions, you can submit them with Slido because the 5 last minutes of Tim will be answering the 3 or 4 most popular questions on Slido. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining me. Can everybody hear me fine? Yes? All right, so my name is Tim Dirksens. I'm co-founder of FundRequest. I'm going to talk to you here today because we built a marketplace for open source software. And I'm going to tell you why we built a marketplace for open source software development. So in open source, today it's actually everywhere. Governments use it, business use it, and even nonprofits use it on a daily basis. In America, if you look at open source, if you look at corporations, sorry, not at corporations, but at American government organizations, more than 50% of those organizations use open source in some manner. Also, businesses use it on a daily basis, either for accelerating their development work or to launch their production environment using, for example, Linux systems for open source. Also, nonprofits are using it more and more on a daily basis because they need to prove that they are spending their funds in a good way and going to use that open source software for that. Now, open source outperforms proprietary software is a statement that we're making, and that is from a survey from Northbridge from 2016, where that they claim 90% of IT consultants, they use open source software. And 65% of those surveyed companies, they use it to accelerate development. While as in 2006, this was more only for the production environments, where you can say, look, we're going to use open source software from an operational, from infrastructure level, while now we're more moving into open source software for software development. Now, if you now look at the statistics of GitHub, right now in 2017, there are more than 25 million active GitHub repositories, so projects running on GitHub, and this is also in a private phase and also in a public repository. And in 2017, 68 million issues were closed on GitHub alone, and this is all issues that are somewhat open source and also within the proprietary systems that are operating on GitHub. Now, why use open source? You use it because it can give you a competitive edge. You use it, like I said, for to accelerate software development, but you also want to use it because you do not want to have a vendor lock-in. Like if you use a really expensive system, you buy into the system, you buy expensive licenses, and you can get locked in by the vendor itself. And this is one reason that companies adopt or use open source software for that. Now, it's not only for that, but it's also to say, look, I want to have a community of developers helping me out. And this is where an open source environment helps out, where you see a lot of developers can contribute code, and that can improve your code quality because so many people are actually looking into the code. And this is something that you miss when you're into a private system or when you use a third party to audit something. That's always the trust that you need to rely on the third party, where you can sometimes rely the trust on the community and the majority of people that are operating there or working there. But what we see is there's a marketplace missing for open source. What we mean is businesses that use open source, they have a fundamental problem. They cannot incentivize people to look at the issues that they have while they are using open source software. And developers, well, they love contributing code, but the issue for them is, well, I can contribute my time and effort to help out the open source project, but in the end, I still need to pay my bills or feed my family. And also the project maintainers of open source software, they have a fundamental problem when they have an adoption, or when they actually have not enough adoption, but they still have a cool idea. And some businesses use it, and other businesses don't. Now, how do we get this all together? Well, what we do is, look, here you have a business. Well, yeah. What we do is, here you have a business. The business describes a problem. They add funds to the problem, and we put that into a smart contract. Now, that smart contract, we use the Ethereum blockchain, so that's a public blockchain, and we think that's a logical step to do that because, well, our business is open source, as in open, and our community is a very decentralized community. So for us, it makes sense to go more into the open source spectrum of the blockchain there. And what we do with that smart contract is, look, we post that information on GitHub, and we let developers know that are active on GitHub that there's a request by a business member. They've added or pre-funded an issue, and the smart contract says, well, if the conditions are met and if you solve the puzzle of the business that really wants the code, then you get the reward. So it's the underlying process that of GitHub that dictates the process. So the code has to be merged before there's a payout from the funder. He has to approve it, and then the payout goes to the developers. So for that, we do not take a percentage or anything. That's something that we offer from our end. So in the first phase, what we did is we did an integration with GitHub. But that is not the only step for us. Where we can say is, look, we can integrate with any platform. We can go to GitHub, we can integrate with Bitbucket, we can integrate with GitLab. These are other repository platforms, but we do not need to stop there. We can also integrate this in a project management tool. If you like Atlassian, for example, they have Jira. I don't know if some of you are aware of Jira. Well, behind that, you can also have a community where businesses fund an issue, request an issue, fund an issue, and where developers within a corporation can actually get the rewards of a funded issue, where you can say, you can micro-task something like that. And then we're again moving away from open source, and we might be even moving away from Ethereum for that, because then you're working in an organization environment. Now, why do we use blockchain? We use it because it's a technology. We like the technology. We can build everything ourselves without blockchain, yes, but yeah, then we would need a lot more funding and a lot more community basis, where here we do the same thing. We leverage the community of Ethereum, where we can incentivize people to say, here is an idea, you can use our idea, and we can build it on top of Ethereum platform and work with the developers that are working within Ethereum. Same thing with GitHub. We leverage the developers that are on GitHub and improve on that, where we have the benefits of both parties. Now, we use blockchain because, yeah, it's trustworthy and secure and immutable. Now, for us, where are we today? So we have already launched a platform 2 weeks ago. We have an FND token for that. So projects that do not have their own token, they can use our token, where you can say, this is stored on a smart contract, this is a certain amount of funding that is on there, and a developer can get or claim the reward if they win. Now, apart from that is, like I said before, we take 0 fees. As in, what we do is we have a platform with token economics in mind. So our end goal is to have fund requests where it's an API platform, where any user or corporation can download it for its own purposes and more for a community purpose. So, for example, if you're a large organization, and with that organization you say, look, I want to plug and play this in my enterprise Jira, it should be able to work. That is our end goal that we have in mind. And with that, we also want to create something what we call a skill token. This is something that we want to put on a public blockchain as a record. We can say, look, here's a developer. He's worked on our platform. He's worked on GitHub. He's worked on several environments. And with every issue that he solves, he gets some sort of reputation. And we want to have that reputation as a public record on a public blockchain, where even if a fund request does not exist, for example, the entity, that developer has earned a reputation beyond a GitHub, beyond the Stack Exchange, beyond the GitLab, and can say, look, I have experience, provable experience that is put on a public blockchain. And that is something that we're also working on. And with that, we want to have premium services. And I think my time is almost up. And with that, I can go into the question and answers. Any questions? How do I handle the reputation problems? Sorry? Rating. Well, there are multiple mechanisms where you can use that. We're actually talking with projects such as Aragon and Gnosis. Each have different mechanisms to do that. And with them, we're looking into a good version to do it. I do not have the answer today. That's why I said it's something that we're looking into the future. And yeah, I'm not the right person to answer that question at the moment. Yeah? Oh, on the board, sorry. So the first question is, how is a solution verified and by whom? So a solution is verified by the project owner, the project maintainer, so the repository owner. So right now, if most likely the funder will be the project owner, in this case, today the date. And they do this because they want to invite developers over to fund their project, to work on their project. And they fund the issue, and if they're happy with the solution, then they give the claim out. Well, there's also a mechanism when you can say the funder is not the project owner. And then what we need to do is we have to look at a good governance system where you can say, look, here are people that are reviewing the code, reviewing the funded issue and reviewing the solution, and where they can help out either by a voting mechanism and say, look, the solution that this developer provided and what that project owner accepted is good enough for as a solution for the funder that is an organization. So there is what we have to look and test within an ecosystem, just like you would do with a private blockchain, for example, where you can say, look, this is something that we need to test out. You have the stakeholder of a funder, a project owner, and a developer. And with the three aspects, you need to find a middle ground together. We can say, look, the funded issue is indeed correct and solved. Next question is, what is the difference with Gitcoin, which is already active in the ecosystem for a while now? Yes, Gitcoin is indeed a competitor. So Gitcoin, what they use is they use Ethereum only and DAI at the moment. And what we do at the moment is we allow any project to use their own ERC20 token. We also use our own tokens, so we can use that to have an incentivization for other projects, where I can say, hey, if you, for example, do not have Ethereum, if you do not have our token, you can pay in fiat. We can translate that into our own token, and that can be used as something that can be stored in a smart contract. So that is also something where we've prepared ourselves to give us the option to support open source projects beyond the cryptocurrency space. And also Gitcoin, the name itself, right now is they focus purely on GitHub. And our plan is actually to move away and be an integration platform for multiple platforms like that. So maybe it's a difference in vision and it's a difference in implementation, but fundamentally our core goals are aligned, and that is to create an incentivization model for open source. So that's the main difference. Open source and the marketplace kind of sounds counterintuitive. Why would you sell open source software? I don't think we're selling open source software. We're offering people the means to say, look, I want to add a feature and I want it developed by a funder, by a solver in the open source community. It's not something that we're selling. It's bringing two parties together that at the moment are not talking to each other. Right now, what do businesses have? They can either go completely open source and trust that somebody will actually solve the issue. That will not happen. They can actually say, look, I'm going to buy a license from Red Hat. That's a very expensive license to have. And that license alone is only for a specific service that they support. So with the model that we give is we can say, look, this is funding for any project, any issue that is out there on GitHub today. And that is a fundamental difference where you can say, this is a micro task that I want funded because it's a fundamental problem that I have today. One more question? Okay. Wouldn't this system focus most developer effort be on commercial projects? I'm not sure about that, because what is a commercial project? Samsung alone, they use, I think, 80 to 85% of open source products today. 80 to 85% of the development stack that they have relies on open source. And yes, they have a lot of in-house developers, but yeah, that's also a commercial project. But if you have an issue of a stack of open source and you use it for your own commercial purposes, but you are only a small and medium-sized company, you cannot afford a license, but you still need to have the support. And this is a benefit for both directions, where you can say, I, as a developer, can support a small or medium-sized company for a fundamental that they have on a project that I am maintaining, or I would like to maintain, but I do not have the time or the money to do it at the moment. And if you look at a lot of the GitHub projects on the repositories, they are maintained by 2 or 3 or 4 people, not more than that. All the rest, they come and go. And those project maintainers, they actually need other people to help them out because they're too busy doing code reviews and looking at requests of people that need issues being solved, and you have no middle ground. You want to bring them all together and say, look, take the pressure of the project maintainers that are too busy looking at both directions, have them get help by developers that are attracted by a little bit of a financial incentive, and also help our businesses to work on a product or a project in an open source environment, because the other alternative that they have is say, look, I need to hire a developer to help me out, and that costs a lot of money, and that can also be we can hire expensive consultants to do that work. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, thank you once again. All right, so if you have more questions for Tim and Fenrikest, well, just go find him during the networking after the 3 following projects. The next project our guests come from Silicon Valley or from that area, from San Francisco. So straight from San Francisco, we have Matt, the CEO of Whipson, who's going to present the whole thing. So please join us.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having me in our European World Tour. European and then World Tour. I'm Matt Travisano, founder and CEO of Whipson, and today I'm going to be talking about data, money, and privacy. So let me rush through the quick historical introduction. So this, what you see here, is a chart of the world gross product. It's basically the GDP of the whole world. And as you can see, the economy remained pretty flat until the Industrial Revolution, when it radically started to grow exponentially. Basically, in the Industrial Revolution, it changed from being an economy based in agriculture to the industry. Second point that I want to focus on is this information revolution. Then the economy exponentially, grow even more, even faster. And what happened there, the value creation depended more and more in the ability of the companies to capture and process data. These are 2 very important moments in the historical economic history, but what they have in common is they're basically a raw material used by a machine to produce value. So in the Industrial Revolution is oil and a refinery. In the case of the Information Revolution is data plus algorithms, or how we call them AI systems. They basically let us take better solutions and faster. So Information Revolution, the new AI-driven economy, is driven by a raw material, which is data. So we can say now that if data is so important, that's reflected on the market cap of the companies. So you can see before 2012, most of the companies were oil-based companies, petrol companies. After 2012, and that continues nowadays, most or all the companies, actually the top 5 companies, are data-related companies or data-driven companies. So we can say that nowadays, we can say that the most important natural resource is not oil anymore, but data. If you look at all these, the most successful companies at its core, they have data, unique data, and an algorithm. So, but the one thing that we are missing here, yes, these companies are doing a lot of money, but the one thing that we are missing is that data that they are using, it's our data. It's data about people. Right? Every time that you go online, over 5,000 companies are capturing your data in a lot of opaque ways, right? And a lot of times you don't even know about it. They do it without your consent. So really, we started Whipson because we want to change that. We want to we believe that everyone has the right to own their data, meaning that they should be able to control who they share it with, for which purpose, for how long, and they should be able to participate in the benefits that their data generates. So Wibson is a blockchain-based decentralized data marketplace that basically allows people, data owners, to control and sell their data in an anonymous and secure way. Okay, so when we built Wibson based on 4 principles, because at the end this has a social mission, right? So we wanted to be principled. We built them with the values that we believe that we wanted to have, which are transparency. We want the user to be always able to understand who they're sharing their data with, for how much. They need to be able to see it all the time. Anonymity. If the user, the data seller, you guys don't want to disclose who you are, you should be able to not do it and still sell your anonymous data. Fairness. There should be a market-driven negotiation for the price that you want to pay for that data. Oh, sorry. And control. You have to be able to always control what the buyer is doing with your data at any point in time. Now I want to address another question that I get all the time, so I hope that I'm anticipating here. So why blockchain? Why decentralized? And there are mainly 2 reasons why we're doing this on the blockchain. The first one is like people don't want to change Google and Facebook for a bigger monster, right? We all want to be in control. And the magic of blockchain is that it actually allows you to be in control, puts you in control, put the users, the data owners in control. So you are in control of your data. The second reason, and probably more important, is that, you're all blockchain experts. So one of the beauty of the blockchain is that it allows you to articulate a consensus mechanism that allows the users to participate in the decisions that the network take. One example here that I use a lot is that, well, now that we have covered this Cambridge Analytica thing going on, and what can you do? You can either just leave Facebook or nothing. What are you going to do? You write Mark. Who cares? So with Wibson, you have a voice over the destiny of the network. So this is basically how all the internet works. It's a very, very silly stated, what we call like the bad advertising, digital advertising model. It's very easy, very, very easy. Like you have an advertiser, say Nike, they want to advertise their new running shoes. They basically need to buy 2 things to get to the people. First is they need to know who of us they like running, so they need their data. And second, they need a board to show you the ad. Okay, Facebook basically provide both, right? But the finding, we did the research, and you can check it out on our Medium blog, is that we did the research, and actually, of all the revenues that Facebook is getting, actually 60% of that, it's because of our data, the data that we contribute. 60% of every dollar that Nike pays is because of our data. Okay? And that's, I don't have the numbers here, but that's in terms of the 2017 revenue. Facebook revenue is over $24 billion. And when you do the average on how much money the people is not getting, it's over $240 per year on average US consumer. So what we are basically proposing, and only for the digital advertising use case, is like, okay, Facebook, you have your billboard, you should get that 40%. But our data, the revenue that is generated by our data, we want to keep it. So that's why we started and launched the Wibson Alpha in late February at the Mobile World Congress. It's running on the Ethereum testnet for now. And you can download it at the Google Play Store or by invitation from our webpage from the App Store. And I will tell you very, very quickly how it works. There are three very basic steps. One is you connect your data. So let's just say that this is my phone. I can connect to the sensors. I can retrieve data from the sensors within my phone, such as the location information. Or I can connect to my LinkedIn or my Facebook data. I retrieve the data and I stored it encrypted on my phone. So of course, there are no servers. Everything is peer-to-peer in this sense. So once I have all my data connected and stored encrypted on my phone, I start getting what we call like data offers. Buyers saying, hey, man, I wanna buy you, hey man, I wanna buy you, I don't know, your data. And it has to, when you log in and you will see that it clearly states who the buyer is. What are they going to use their data for? How much are they going to pay? For how long they're going to use it? That's very, very clearly stated on the application, on the data order. And once you do this, you can either accept or reject it, right? But if you accept it, you will get, now, because it's an alpha, you get data with some points that then you can change it for, nowadays you can actually do it and change it for Spotify subscriptions or an Uber ride or gift card. But eventually, when we launch the mainnet, the full version, you will get the WIP coin. Okay. So connect your data, accept your data offer, and get the points and eventually the coins. So I've been asked why we are doing this in a public blockchain. I kind of see three main reasons, and they're all pretty obvious. So happy to then take it offline and go deeper. But basically, permissionless innovation. I've been involved in other stages of the technology. I founded my first company when I was 17 years old, and what I learned is that when the technology is very early, it's very immature, you never know where the next killing innovation will come from. So, the best blockchain will eventually, or actually the best ecosystem will eventually come out of a combination, a very unexpected combination of parts. And in order for that to happen, I'm not saying that it cannot happen in a closed environment, but I'm saying that openness is a catalyzer for that to happen. So then infrastructure, there are many more things to do, even if you have interoperability with the closed, with the open. There's so many more tools and infrastructure to use for open than for closed, and there will always be. And then security, of course, that's a pretty straightforward statement, right? So, thank you. 12 seconds to go.
5 minutes of questions.
If our data is so important, why not become a social network yourself? I think that to create a social network, there's so many more things that you need to create rather than just a protocol to interchange data. It can sound a little bit too, well, but the way that we look at our protocol is like as the HTTP or the TCP/IP is the protocol to move data around. We want to create a protocol to help people control and monetize their data. On top of that, you can create a social network that uses it. Actually, you should check out Elysium. There's a social network for sports that are using Webson. But yeah, I don't feel that I'm good at creating things that relates social skills. Oops. How does Webson impose itself in the advertising model? Why would that's a good question. Why would Facebook buy the data if they have them anyway? Okay, it's a kind of two-pronged question. It's very good. So let me tell you, and it's related with our go-to-market. So I'll tell you my go-to-market. Okay, so basically the first question is how you start letting or imposing, as they use, our solution for the advertisers to use it. Basically, I don't know how familiar we are with advertising, but the world is separated in two pieces, like Google and Facebook that has, say, depending on the country, but just say 60% of the market, and then everybody else, right? So the big problem here is that when you look at it from a paradigmatical point of view, the big problem is not Google and Facebook. You maybe use it because everybody knows them, but they're not the first problem. The first problem are the data brokers. So Google and Facebook, they propose you a trade. You give them your data, they give you value back. Who cannot say that Google is giving a lot of value, right? So we are not going after them at the beginning, and I will address the second question later. But the first, who are we going after is the data brokers. Data brokers are companies that they're getting your data and they're not giving anything back. Check out Axiom or Experian. Like they're collecting data from everywhere and they're not giving you any value back, and they're making billions, okay? So now we are going after them. Why we believe that the marketeers will go and buy the data from Whipson? Two things. First is because they get the consent directly from the data owners, and because the data quality is better, because it's not that they infer from somewhere, it's that you are stating that, and it's actually being verified. We can talk about that later. But the other magical thing is GDPR. Imagine that now I give you a button in Whipson, and I'll tell you, hey, you know that Axion is selling your data, you want to stop it? So you click there, you send them a note saying, it's automatized, of course, saying, hey guys, hey Axiom, fuck you, I use my right to be forgotten. You cannot use my data anymore. And by the way, if you want to buy it from me. So that's kind of the go-to-market for the first part of the question. Second part of the question, I don't believe that Facebook will buy it from us in the short term. But there is a play, very, 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 very small opportunity, very unlikely to succeed, but a very, very big upside, which is it needs two things to happen, and they're intertwined. First, they need people to change their mind. They need to recognize that your data is kind of a right, like a human right that you guys have. It's your data. Somebody is using it. It's like what's going on? Like it's something that we need to realize. Second, the regulators. Once the regulators see an opportunity, that can work against them. And at the end, I think that Facebook can have a working business model where they give you part of your value back because of your data. But by doing so, they also open it up using your data to other things. Think about this. Facebook is only making all this money, only selling advertising. What if they can use it for healthcare? What if they can use it for whatever exploration? So for financial, for a hedge fund. They cannot do that because they will never ask you about it. But if now they're participating, maybe they can turn into a much bigger data machine. Hypothesizing, right? Sorry. How do you prevent resell of the data? That's a good question. We are working on an idea that we call forward privacy, which is based on something that's called forward secrecy in the cryptographic literature. But that's a very hard problem. Honestly, the only way that you can enforce that is at the legal level. So every time that you sell something, it will come out with an expiration date. So I buy your data for 1 day. After 1 day, the system automatically sends you an opt-out and a right to be forgotten. More than that, we don't know. Why would companies buy data they are not allowed to control? It's an interesting point. I think that the main reason that will force companies to buy data is because they don't have it anymore. What I was telling you. Imagine that we are the only Facebook users. This is a very different experience than with 2 billion people, but imagine that you are all the only Facebook users. We are all here, and I tell you, hey guys, you can get $240 per year just if you say opt out. If we all opt out our data from Facebook, Facebook will come back and say, hey, let us make a deal. Okay? So what we are selling is like, if people realize that this is happening and the data is right, and under GDPR, you can exercise that control, that right, well, you're forcing them to come and use your data. And there are other reasons, but I think that's the strongest. Last one. How do you get the data about yourself to sell? Facebook has an immense data, the model behind their, that's a very interesting question. So there is a very big, there is a problem that maybe it has to be with that. So there is a big problem, which is who buys the data wants to buy the data in a specific format, and who has the incentives to work to create that data model, that ontology of the data that the buyer wants to buy. That's a difficult problem, and we don't have a good answer. But at the beginning, we are putting together an ontology that represents the 80% of what the advertisers are buying, which is basically like 10, 15 variables. Happy to take that question offline. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. It's really interesting. Next, so if you have more questions, because I also have a couple myself, you can find them at the stand right after, during the networking. So the next project being presented is Komodo by Chris, who came here all over from the Netherlands. He's a marketing manager there, and he's going to present Komodo for you guys. So Chris, please join me. Chris?
Do you have the present? Yeah. Let's see. Werkt die? Oh. Werkt de microfoon? Ja, volgens mij wel. Wacht even.
The presentation is coming in a second.
Okay.
By the way, now that you guys are seeing a Slack, we have a Slack, so you can join our Slack on slack.hive.brussels, and you can also join the community by going on join.hive.brussels.
Yes.
All right, good luck.
Hello guys. So I'm Chris. I work for Komodo. And I will talk to you guys a little bit about the Komodo platform today. If you have any questions, be sure to use Slido. So Komodo is a platform, and what we mean by this is that you can use Komodo to either build a project you're working on or strengthen it. And I will show you a few use cases of that. But what I think is the most essential to Komodo is the ideas that it stands for. So the Komodo platform is all about freedom, security, and anonymity/privacy. So I will give some examples of how this is done. So, for freedom, we have the BarterDEX. The BarterDEX is a decentralized exchange that we built. And it is built on a Tor-like network, so no one can turn it off or prohibit you from trading. It is freedom with trading. So, some use cases of that are, for instance, the 2,000 Chinese people that use the BarterDEX to go around the government's crackdown on centralized exchanges. So we have done over 110,000 atomic swaps for people that know what it is. And because the BarterDEX is set up like a wallet, you do not need any IDs to register it. There's no KYC. So this is enabling freedom for instance, the Chinese people. Let's see. Now, security. We have built a unique consensus algorithm called delayed proof of work, which is used to strengthen the Komodo blockchain and make it more resistant against attacks. But, for instance, it's also used by game credits, a coin you might have heard of, which is one of the most used by transactions per second proof of work chains at the moment. And it had a lot of problems with people, 51% attacking the chain. So they adopted the Komodo delayed proof of work, Komodo platform's delayed proof of work algorithm to strengthen their project. And lastly, but not least, anonymity. We created the decentralized ICO, which is basically an ICO solution that ensures that no KYC checks or retraceability is possible or is needed by proving on the blockchain that no transaction of over like whatever KYC value, I think I put $20,000 there. $20,000, I think that's the KYC value they use in Switzerland, but don't quote me on this. That no transaction over this value has been conducted. Let's see. So, and this has been done by quite a few projects now, like some examples are BNT, Utrum, and Equalizer, which have all done a decentralized ICO on the Komodo platform to raise funds for their project. Now, I also was going to tell a little bit about the public and private blockchain thing. Komodo, as I told, is a platform, which means that you can start your own projects on this. But unlike a platform like Ethereum, we actually offer the possibility to make a permissioned blockchain on our platform with by adopting the delayed proof of work, has the same resistance as any other decentralized open blockchain. And you can do DICOs pretty easy when you adopt this technology. So I think that's the end of my presentation. If there are any really cool questions or other questions, let's see. What's the top one? How does delayed proof of work? Some technical depth is appreciated. How is delayed proof of work more resilient to attacks? Okay, so I will give a quick technical rundown on this, but the last time I tried to explain this, it took me about 30 minutes, so be wary. Okay, so basically for anybody that is comfortable with blockchain terms, what you do is you take the hash of your Komodo blockchain, so of a Komodo block, of course, so you mine, the block is mined, you have the hash of the block, and you make a small transaction on the Bitcoin blockchain. And with the transaction on the Bitcoin blockchain, you can type a message. And this was actually a funny story about this. When the Bitcoin Cash fork launched, a lot of people used this possibility to type in a little message with your Bitcoin transaction to make advertisements in the first few blocks, because everybody was looking at them to see if Bitcoin Cash really succeeded. And so that's a funny story about the transaction thing, but anyhow. So what you do is you take the hash of a Komodo block and you send a small transaction over the Bitcoin blockchain, and in the place where you can put like a little message, you write this hash. So now what has happened is your Komodo block hash has also been added to the Bitcoin blockchain. So now if someone wants to 51% attack the Komodo chain or the game credits chain, they can 51% attack like Komodo, okay? Change some blocks, hashes are changed, and everybody can see, but in the Bitcoin chain, there is a different hash. So we know someone has been fucking around with our chain. So to do a successful 51% attack on, for instance, Komodo or game credits or an asset chain that uses Komodo's delayed proof of work for security, you would also need to attack if you want to hack a Komodo, also attack Bitcoin, which is kind of hard, and Komodo. And if you will want to attack game credits or asset chains, you have to attack Bitcoin, Komodo, and the asset chain / game credits themselves. So that is the technical details really fast about how delayed proof of work works. Okay, then second question. Is there a simple way, I think, oh no. I already had this one.
I'm sorry.
Let's see. Is there a simple way to explain an atomic swap? Not really, but I always like to do this exercise, okay? Are there any Bobs in the room? Any Bobs? Anyone who wants to play Bob? Here, you can play Bob. Yeah, you? Oh, yeah, you can come too. And any females? Any females? I need an Alice, boys. Is there any females here? Yeah, you can play Alice. Come. Okay, so you can be here. Okay. Can I get the books from behind you? I need some type of currency. Yes. Cool. Okay. So here we have Alice and Bob. Okay. And Alice and Bob want to do a atomic swap. So Bob has Litecoin and Alice has Komodo, and they want to trade. So the first thing that happens is Alice will say, hello, I want to do a trade. Okay, Alice, you say?
Hello, I want to do a trade.
Okay, then Bob says, that comes really handy because I have always wanted Komodo. Exactly, now. And what happens now is Bob will put some part of his money, about 50%, in KYC, in escrow on the blockchain. So on the couch, hoppata. So that 50%, which is so the same amount as he wants to trade, is in escrow on the blockchain. And now what will happen is Alice will give her Komodo to Bob, and Bob will give now his Litecoin to Alice. And now I see all of you guys thinking, but what happens if Alice sends over the Komodo or the Litecoin? And Bob is like, haha, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm not going to send this back. Okay, what will happen now is she will get exactly the thing on the couch. And you can see that the same state is back. So, can we get an applause for Alice and Bob? I never got the atomic swap explained simpler than this. So, sorry if you still don't understand it. Just talk to me after my presentation. I will explain it again. Okay. Are you not afraid of getting arrested for violating anti-money laundering law? You also declared you helped. Yes. So I am kind of afraid of the Chinese government. That's one way to answer this question. And the anti-money law is, we do not provide money laundering. But if you would, we do not provide the possibility. We kind of do provide the possibility to launder money, but it's still really hard. If you have euros and you want to launder money through the Komodo platform, you would still need to get past the bank, which is kind of hard. So the only way you could kind of launder money by shuffling it around a bunch of times is if you already had cryptos. So that is the answer. And I am not violating any money laundering law. Someone using my platform could possibly do it, but that's not me. So, are you writing on the Bitcoin blockchain using OP return? No. The two you actually for an atomic swap. I guess this is for the atomic swap protocol. What you want is OP check lock time verifier to get the KYC, the escrow on the blockchain correct. But if that's not your question, I will talk to you after my presentation. Just come to me. Can we get the next question? Who puts the hash in the Bitcoin blockchain? Quick internet search talks about notary nodes. Yes, so we have a special kind of nodes on Komodo platform who take the hashes and write them in the Bitcoin blockchain. You can become one of these nodes by getting elected. So it's kind of like dedicated proof of work for this special set of nodes. Not really, but that's a pretty solid comparison. And by the way, I'm one of them, so you can basically trust me. Are there any questions still left in the audience who did not write in on the Slido?
There are a few more.
Oh, there are still a few more. Cool. Will notary nodes increase centralization? Well, yes, and yes, a little bit. But the thing is, so let's imagine the worst possible scenario. You have a notary node, and he will act maliciously. There will not be done any damage to the Komodo chain whatsoever. The only problem that is arising is that for 10 minutes, you do not have to hack Bitcoin to also hack Komodo. And after these 10 minutes, the notary node will get kicked. And because you need to get elected to become notary node, it's really hard to get back in after you have been kicked. So yes, this increases centralization, but there is not really a big drawback to this centralization, other than when it backfires, you have become as secure as every decentralized chain. So there is not really a worst possible scenario. Okay, what about the fiat, XMR, Komodo, XMR, anything? Yes, so that is, I think, the jumbler, and this part can be regulated, so the fiat XMR can be regulated to by the banks or by the government. But as I already told you, if you have crypto, laundering money through doing multiple Z transactions in a row is possible. But if you want to go from fiat to a crypto, the government will stop you probably if you have a large sum of money. Okay.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you very much. Really entertainment. Our next speaker comes from Hong Kong. He's the CEO of Selfkey. His name is Edmund, and he will explain to you what he's doing, what his project is doing in the future. Good luck.
Yes, thank you. So last presentation of the evening. So maybe everybody wants to stand up and stretch out for like 1 second. Oh, yeah, share all night. Okay, so 10 minutes. So my presentation is called Self-Sovereign Identity. Who cares? What is it? And what does it do for me? Because I think that that's relevant. If you're sitting in the audience, I should be able to answer those questions. So that's what I hope to do with my presentation. So who cares? I think that anyone in the Belgium or Amsterdam or Luxembourgish startup ecosystem should care, right? And the reason why is that if you go through a KYC process with any one startup and then you want to onboard at another startup, you have to go through the whole KYC process again, right? This is normal. This is how the world works today. We hope to change that. I'll tell you how. So the second question is, what is it? What is self-sovereign identity? So it's kind of difficult to explain self-sovereign identity in one sentence, but these are some of the elements of self-sovereign identity that Christopher Allen, the architect of basically the internet, of TLS. When there's a little green lock on the top of your browser and it keeps you safe when you're doing a banking transaction, the guy who created that created these 10 principles, and we sort of borrowed these principles, great artists steal, and built them into the governance of our system. So we cannot make any protocol level change that's in violation of these. So things like access to your own data, control of your own identity, portable, transparent identity, these are all things that make up self-sovereign identity. So who owns your data right now in a centralized identity model is basically governments, websites, who all ask you to send the information to them, and then they keep it in a big data silo. And what's different between that and self-sovereign identity is that you remain in the middle, and then you decide what information you want to share with different parties. So it's a very different model. It's almost flipping it on its head. Why now? Why is this relevant now? There's been about 10 billion data breaches since 2013 in terms of data records that have been lost or stolen. Every day, 5 million. Since I've started my presentation, about 7,000 records have been stolen. So that's kind of a lot. It's kind of a problem. Every second, there's 58 records stolen. So there's another 58, there's another 58, there's another 58. Why now? Data is obviously very valuable, right? The new companies that have sprung up in the past decade have all been plays on data. Facebook, Uber, really these are data plays, right? And this data is very valuable. These companies are harvesting it. The app is free, but the product is you. I'm sure you've all heard this before, right? So it's important that we change this model. And another piece of legislation, which I think is very important, probably everyone in the room has heard, is General Data Privacy Rule. So GDPR isn't something that only people in Europe are freaking out about. It's companies all over the world. In Asia, people are worried about this as well. If you are a company and you have European citizens as customers, this applies to you, and the penalties are immense. It could be 4% of your global revenue. Can you imagine what that is for Facebook? If they have data breaches in the future where they lose your data, they're going to be looking at immense fines. And there's also an element of CRS and automatic exchange of information. So this is newly enacted law. It's a cross-border legislation which basically requires banks to share information with governments and other governments sharing information about you, and you're not even sure when it happens or where it happens. And this is an issue. I think that this is something which simply has to change. So anyway, all that aside, hopefully you have some idea of what self-sovereign identity is. Now, what can it do for you? And I think that the best way I can answer that is what my company's doing, what our product is, and if you wanted to use our product, which is free, by the way, then this is what you could use it for. So what is Selfkey? Selfkey is self-sovereign blockchain identity. It's a system that allows individuals and companies to own and control their digital identity and access different products or services. So you set up your digital identity, and then you can access products and services like fintech products, financial services, token sales, coin exchanges. All of these are available within the wallet. Here are some of the partners that we're working with. We did a nice project where the information is online with Standard Chartered Bank. We've worked with other regulated financial institutions, law firms, immigration firms, different partners in our marketplace is what this screen's about. Here's our team. We hire a lot of lawyers, and we have a lot of design and developers. So come and talk to me if you're looking for work and you're a developer. Here's basically what we do in one slide. We are a digital identity wallet which sits on a phone or computer. You store your identity there, and you can get it notarized or certified, and then you can access different products or services. That's it. It's pretty simple. It's held under a nonprofit foundation. It's a free and open source identity wallet, so anyone can check out the source code. And there's a marketplace with real products and services. And we've built this in a way where it runs off of our native token key, which we did an ICO for like everyone else. So here's a little bit more about self-sovereign identity within our wallet. It tries to make the onboarding process with financial services faster, more hassle-free, more efficient. That's what we're trying to do, is make this process a little bit more efficient. So here's kind of the more detailed, nuanced element is, what is this token good for, right? Like, what do you use this token for in the network? That's what this slide's about. So the token within our network is aimed to make reputation more secure. So what I mean by that is, if you're a notary and you want to certify a document, right now you have to go to the government, you have to place what's called a surety bond with the government, and then as long as you're a good notary, you get the bond back when you're done doing your notarization services. This is how notaries work in every country in the world. All that we're trying to do is the same exact thing on chain. So the notary has to stake a certain amount of tokens, and then they're on the system. And then the identity owner can say, hey, Mr. Notary, I'd really like my passport certified. Can you do that for me? He says, sure, I'll do that, no problem, sure. And he sends back two things. He sends you back the notarized copy of your passport with a stamp on it, which is kind of what you use in the real world. And he also sends you back a signed DID claim. And what this DID claim is, it's a machine-readable code that says, I'm Edmund Lowell, I'm an American citizen, I certify this document, and I'm a notary in the state of Virginia, and I've seen this document, and it's legit, and it's valid. And that machine-readable code is really important, because that allows you to then onboard with a bank or an exchange with one click. No more waiting in line, no more passing back sensitive documents and data over unencrypted email, and it's a hash of this document is stored on the blockchain as well, which is also quite valuable. So what this whole system is doing is trying to make identity interactions more quick, more efficient, more secure. So it's very simple. Forget all the fancy blockchain stuff. How do you use the system? You set up a digital identity, you get it verified, you can go into the marketplace and browse products and services, you can complete an application, and then you're done. Pretty simple. Anyone can use it. You don't need any specialized blockchain knowledge in order to be able to use the system. So here's how you use it in like 3 screens. You'd set up a wallet, which if you haven't done before, there's little explanations of what exactly you're doing and how you do it. You verify your identity, and then you can go and you can see the dashboard. Here I've got some key, I've got some Ethereum, and then I can look at different products and services that are available within the wallet. So there's lots of different marketplaces that are available, residency, bank accounts, exchange accounts. We'll be launching with exchange accounts this month, actually, which is kind of exciting. So check that out if you'd like to. So here's one slide that basically tells you why this is more effective for each of the parties in the ecosystem, right? So there's 3 parties. There's the certifiers, so that's like the notary or the translator. There's the relying parties, which is like the bank, and then there's the identity owners. So this is you and me and anyone else. And every step of the process right now in the current world is kind of painful for each of these parties, right? Nobody likes KYC. There's no banker that wakes up in the morning and says, I can't wait to do some KYC today. There's no identity owner that says KYC is really fun. Ask a banker, ask your friend who's a banker. There's plenty of bankers in Belgium. Ask them if they like doing KYC. No one says yes, even the compliance officers. Everyone hates it. So we're trying to make this process a little bit easier. So what we've done so far is we've done 250,000 KYC applications in the last 6 months, and we've processed over $200 million for different token sales. So we've worked a lot with token sales. TDEs is what lawyers like calling them. And what we've managed to do is that the user can submit their documents to one token sale, and then they one-click onboard to the next token sale. A little bit easier to do this with an ICO than it is with a bank, but we've been able to prove the model, right? This reusable KYC is effective and it's much quicker. The reason why we've been able to have such traction this year is we've been working on this since around 2014. We've been through 3 different accelerators, Accenture FinTech Lab in Hong Kong, Supercharger in Hong Kong, We announced our work with Standard Chartered in 2017, and we did our public token sale in January 14th, and it sold out in 11 minutes. So that was an interesting day. And here's our roadmap for 2018, doing a lot of stuff. I'll get to the questions. You guys can look at this later. Here is our token sale, and here are the exchanges that were traded on today. So if you go to any of these exchanges and you look up key, you can buy some of the key, and you can use it within the self-key wallet to sign up for products and services. So that's my presentation in 42 seconds to go, and I'll switch over to some questions. I can't even read it. What does it say? How do you gain critical mass and not just one extra database to worry about? I mean, we don't store any data ourselves, so we definitely won't be a data silo that you have to worry about, because we don't even know what your data is. We don't even know if you're using the system or not. How do we gain critical mass? I will ask you a question. How do you eat an elephant? And the answer is 1 spoon at a time. So hopefully we can do that. If the identity is stored on your computer or telephone, how do you deal with the device in security? That's a good question, but if your computer's compromised, then your computer's compromised. Doesn't matter if you're running our app or not. Yeah, I think that what we do is we store the identity documents on the computer, but we store the crypto through a hardware wallet. So the crypto integrates with Trezor, Ledger. So if you have Trezor or Ledger, you can integrate with that with the wallet, and you can be good to go. And if your computer is compromised, then sorry, your computer's compromised. Who verified your identity? How do other services trust that verifier? What do you mean by your identity? Like me or the company? I don't know.
I have no idea. Should ask who asked the question.
Yeah, who asked the question?
It's called.
Okay. Sorry? So it's a decentralized system, so there is ideally there's no single point of failure, right? So we're not identifying the users per se. It would be whoever the relying party or the certifier was that identified that person that we would be able to store on the chain. And we wouldn't store any of the user's data on the chain, but you'd be able to see a hash, and you'd be able to see, XYZ token sale, or Jim the notary certified that this person is who they say they are. And in that way, we'd be able to look back and see who that verifier was. So there is a root of trust somewhere, but it can't always be the self-key foundation. Otherwise, that would be totally centralized, and you would need a blockchain, that's for sure. Which blockchain is it based on? All right, well, that one's easy. Ethereum. How do you deal with forking? Well, at the end of the day, I don't think that forking would actually affect us. In fact, the fork will come at some point when they roll out Casper. What we see is that you'd be able to store that identity hash on someday any blockchain, and we'd be able to pull that into the identity wallet, and then you'd be able to share it with someone. So I actually don't see that as an issue that will affect us. What type of data is stored on the blockchain? Hash of your name or hash of proof of your name by ID. Right, so it would be the hash of the DID, and that DID is the machine-readable code. So the way that it works is this. I wish I could give an example as good as the person with Alice and Bob, but anyway, I'll do my best. So I'm Bob over here, and I want to get my identity certified. So I go over to Jim the notary, and I say, hey, Jim, here's my identity document. Can you stamp it and sign it? He stamps it and signs it, and he gives it back. But he also gives me this other thing, which is a blockchain DID spec. And we take the hash of this, and we put it on the blockchain. It's this pillow. And we take the other hash, and we put it on the blockchain. It's this pillow. All right? And then I take these, and I want to go to Tom, the banker. And I go, hey, Tom, Jim the notary gave me these documents, and I also used them at Standard Chartered last week. So can you give me a bank account? And I give them to the banker, and he goes, how do I know that this is actually Jim the notary? And he goes, well, just compare this, and then the hash is on the blockchain on this date that's timestamped, immutable proof, and here's the proof of this document on the blockchain, immutable proof. Look, I even used the couch too. So that's how it would work. And come up to me afterwards if that doesn't make sense. Can I use my identity for other apps as well? Yes. So we're actively seeking partners, and we've announced a few different partnerships with different dApps. We have a login with self-key module, which means that you can use it in the browser, and you could one-click sign on to a website without having to use a username or password. So we're trying to kill usernames and passwords, and Google and Facebook, we're coming for your lunch as well. With several SSID projects going on, is interoperability and standardization important, and how do you handle it? Or is it up to the systems to handle different SSIs? So I actually think that interoperability and standardization is a crucial point. To that end, we're part of the Decentralized Identity Foundation, or DIF. There's a bunch of our competitors in that group, and we all submit what's called a DID spec. And what this DID spec does is, if you remember this, it determines how do you get that machine-readable code so that if there's somebody on a different system, Civic or Sovereign or one of these other ones, it would still be interoperable. So we could go to this banker and we could show him the hashes and we could show him the DID spec, and if he ran the proper code, the resolver from the DIF, he'd be able to read this and would go through the machine algorithm that they had written, the software basically, and he'd be able to read this code. So we'd be interoperable with any of these other systems as well. At least that's the idea, and that's what we're working on. Any other questions? That looks like it. One last question. Oh, I just answered that one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Then I have the last one, and this is the beauty about anonymous questions, I guess.
Okay.
I'll let you answer it.
Okay.
It's just displayed right now.
Is the pretender single? No comment.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you so much to all the presenters. And thank you all for being here still now. I know it's quite late, but it's not finished yet. There is some networking still coming up. Yeah, you can go home, but this technology will not stop. It will continue evolving, and you can get to know a lot of people who are trying to do something with it. But what is also quite important to say is that, I mean, there is a whole team behind building events and the whole community that we are building. It's not just the people that you see, it's also the people behind the bar, at the entrance, moving the food around, and so on and so on. And I think it's really important to also do them a big applause to the whole team. I will me just annoy you for 3 more minutes because I think it's quite important. So, Quentin and myself started the Crypto Club back in the days. It was just about bringing people together who had a common interest. After that, we saw that these people were some good interactions, creating some synergies, thinking about projects that could be interesting, some ideas, and we wanted to get further. And so we decided to create a blockchain community, and that's what Hive Blockchain Society is about. And we didn't do that alone. We were joined by Cassandre, Jean-Luc, and Emric, who are there. They are coming slowly. And well, we created this community. We started organizing events to get people together that were interested in doing something with blockchain. And the big idea for us is to even go further and try to create an ecosystem where with all these people that we bring together, we wanna help blockchain projects move forward. And within the community, something that was really interesting is that people liked what we were doing. They were sharing a vision, and they came to us to see if they could help us in achieving that vision. So we have a lot of other people here. I don't know if they want to come up on the stage, but Thomas, you can stand up and you can join us. We have Paul. You can also come, and Antoine, who is responsible for organizing the event also, and the all guys. Alright, so I'm starting to be a bit emotional now, but that's what the community is about. That's the whole Hive team, and even though some people are not showing themselves, but that's just to give you an idea and a glimpse of all the people that are behind this community, and this is only the start of a big ecosystem that we are trying to create. So yeah, a big applause for all these people. And well, this is the people that are in the ecosystem right now, and some you don't see, but we also we would love you to join us in this journey, because this is a journey where it's about you, not about us. It's about creating a community where you guys tell us what we should be doing and what we should be trying to achieve.
And you come on stage as well at the end.
Yeah, exactly. So we will be organizing maybe a little summer event in a garden somewhere, quite chilly. But the next big event will be in September. And we will also be announcing a big news in September, something that we have been working on for a while. So thank you all. Applause to all of yourselves.
See you next time.
And same thing as during the breaks. There is still the possibility to do some VR, AR, some explanation of the mining with this David, the Russian miner, and in 10 minutes he will give a presentation. So if you want to attend it, go on. And otherwise, yeah, we are all out of sandwiches, but there are still drinks. So have a great evening. Thank you all for being here, and see you next time.
you.